Hi, love. Welcome to Soften Up with Krystal Alexandria. I'm really, really glad you're here to talk today about what does soften up really mean? And as it would have it, of course, right before getting ready to launch this beauty into the world, your girl gets sick. And I'm over here patiently waiting day by day to feel better, to hopefully not sound sick when I record this. But then the lesson comes in of like, girl, soften up, okay? Like, it's okay. You can do this recording imperfectly. It's okay. You're human. And that's just how it rolls, isn't it? That is just exactly how those lessons pop in. And I wanted to be sure to share that side of things today because that's exactly the point of this conversation. Like all of these ways that we hold ourselves to these rigid standards, expectations, and societal norms that just squash our softer side, the side of me today that wants to show up with a blanket on my lap and a cup of tea next to me and the camera off, you know? But my heart is still in this. I still want to connect with you. And I almost cut myself off from that. We got to stop doing that, you know? And this whole conversation about what does soften up really mean just helps us inch closer, bit by bit, little by little, gentle, closer to these ways that we can soften the edges of how we regard ourselves, each other, how we approach things, how we approach our creativity, and then also at the grander scale of like, how can we bring a softened perspective to this collective future that we're building? So, there's a lot that I want to get into today, and I hope that you leave at the end just feeling, uh, just like, just a little more exhales flowing out of your body, little bit of a softening in your brain and your mind about how you're thinking about things, and maybe just a little bit inspired of what else might be possible. That brings me to what specifically I want to get into today, which includes my perspective, of course, when it comes to soften up, what it means, how it came about, and how my brain still totally grapples with it. And so if that's happening for you and you're here out of curiosity or like, what is Crystal up to? Like, what the heck does soften up mean? Just know that you're in really, really good company. And the phrase itself is doing its job already by making us think, by hopefully then making us feel a little bit more, a little bit deeper, and then hopefully make even more magically aligned calls, decisions in our life. But hey, this is one big experiment, so we're going to see. We're going to see together. I also want to talk about why our body's armoring process is absolutely necessary and a highly intelligent tool to allow softening to happen in the first place. I want to share some examples of what soften up looks like on a personal, everyday level and also at a grander societal level. And lastly, I'll leave you with some questions to ponder, tinker over, journal on, and just consider in these very, very, very transformative times we find ourselves in. The idea of softening that has been kind of arriving in waves over the last like 6 to 8 months or so. I just kept hearing this intuitive, like, soften, 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 soften. It just wouldn't let me go. It wouldn't leave me alone. And it led to some really great journaling. I would get these like gems of phrases or sentences that I would jot down in my notes app. It would be this kind of like ever present, like curiosity in how I could approach things in my everyday life. And then, the idea of launching a podcast. So, for a little bit of history and context, I actually had a podcast back in 2018, 2019 called the Courage of Ease podcast, which was the name of my signature mentoring program back then. And it was this message of the courage that it took to lead with ease in your everyday life. And, that still is so true. That still stands so, so true. I feel like we're still only at the beginning of letting ease into the conversation. And I think soften and soften up is an evolution of that conversation I was having. Gosh, that's almost 8 years ago now. In the last 2 years, the idea of launching a podcast really surfaced strongly again for me. And it's been this very, very slow burn in the background. And I've just been kind of like opening up to it more and more and more because, hey, if you know anything about content creation and or podcasting, you know that this conversation right here is totally the easiest bit of it all. Like there's just so much behind the scenes that goes on to even get a single podcast episode out. So I knew that it was going to call me forward in the amount of time and energy it required. And I feel like only until the last few months, like I've basically been getting ready to be able to hold that space and root down into this creation. And anytime you're creating something new, especially when it's an energetic space for people to gather and heal and transform and commune and soften, um, environments like that require tending to and nurturing. And so I needed to be sure that I could hold that space well. And I believe I have arrived at that space. And of course, it's a ongoing ritual of care. And I'm honored. I'm so honored to hold space for this conversation. And I really, really am so, so glad you're here. Okay, so then it became time for the podcast to emerge into the world, have form and color and name. And I was hanging out with my sister Tasha one night at my house, and I'm like, "Okay, so this podcast it's a thing. It's happening." And I'm like, "There's a bit of back and forth though about what to call it." And so I ran a couple ideas by her, and she's like, I say this with love. I think we can do better." Oh, leave it to your sister to keep it real in the most wonderful, loving way. I was so grateful to her for that because what came of it is, and it came so quickly through her, she's like, "What about soften up?" And I'm like, "Soften up? Soften up. Interesting." I'm like, "Tell me more." She's like, "Well, it's kind of like a play on like, oh, lighten up or woman up or man up." And it's kind of the antidote for that. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And then I just started kind of riffing on like, that feels like what this feels like inside. There's a bit of a rebellion. There's an invitation forward to kind of like melt down into it. And I really like any time that we can reclaim our energy from these colloquial phrases that happen in culture, like lighten up, which I'll get into a little bit more here in a second. But I just really was vibing with it. And so I kind of slept on it. I took it in and it's just really stuck, and it feels like I'm still exploring it, absolutely. I think it's going to be an ongoing exploration of what it means for each and every single one of us, and in the end, I think it just really sums up what this energetic imprint is of soften up. Going back to those phrases that soften up is an antidote for, almost like medicinal for, when we think about lighten up, that is a cut down. It's one of those ways that like women, femmes, queers, people of color are told to pipe down, take up less space, and frankly, it irritates me so much. Lighten up and all of its derivatives like man up, woman up, it's not that deep, you're overthinking it, why are you so serious right now? That's a bit deep, don't you think? Like, these are all ways that people tell us in one form or another, whether they know it or not. And, trust me, there's plenty that know exactly what they're doing, that you're being too much, or you're making me think more than I want to be right now, or you're making me feel more than I want to right now. And I mean, hello, translation, you're making me uncomfortable, so pipe down so that I don't have to be uncomfortable anymore. And it's about them, not us. It's always been about them. We are supposed to be the ones to challenge and to call people forward and in and up and deeper and expand their scope of what life can actually be. We catalyze people to stop settling for the status quo and to start actually living, living their lives, to architect a life that actually means something to them, to wake up and actually like give a shit about like where their life is being steered, to remind themselves that they are at the helm of their life. Where then does soften up come into play? Well, the first thing I feel when someone tells me to effectively like change my state, approach, attitude to benefit their comfort is to harden. I get defensive. I like bolster myself energetically to like fight or defend, or worse, shrink, quiet down, and swallow all the words and sentiments and passion I naturally come with to any given situation. When it comes to soften up, my brain initially kind of grapples with it. Like, what does it mean exactly? Like, I get it, but I don't get it. And that's just the first reaction off the top. Then, when I break it down into the words, I can actually hear it soften up. When I'm really taking it in, I notice that I exhale. My like shoulders come down, which means my body hears those words and there's something in the vibration of them that exhales in just sweet relief that I just got permission in some form to release, exhale, downshift, and effectively tune into like another internal channel, a softer one, a more relaxed one, a more me one. Some might call this the parasympathetic response, the rest and digest response in our nervous system. It's a phrase I've never really heard in my everyday existence until now. And it's one I dare to embody as like a permission slip for you to experiment with the same. And why experiment with softening at all? Well, I think there's so many reasons, honestly, from just a conceptual perspective, to give ourselves a softer place to land or even to come from internally, emotionally, and in our everyday lives. Maybe to see what else we can create in our lives and for the world from a more softened internal state. And when it comes to softening, I mean, it's kind of everything our society does not support or encourage. Being soft or feminine, effeminate, emotional, maybe even uncertain or new, unexplored, and honestly, underneath it all, vulnerable. I also think that softening takes real wisdom. It takes like a discernment of when and where and how and who we should soften around. It takes real courage to be the most exuberant or expressive in the room when someone's trained so deeply to just fit in. I mean, that's an example of softening to me, where you can be more real time with your expression and emotions. Some even more practical examples of like, it takes courage to let the unexpected wave of grief to flow out of your heart and your eyes and words when it's inconvenient, quote unquote, to do so. Like to be real time with your emotions takes such a willingness internally to be witnessed in that softened, vulnerable state. And it takes courage to step out and say enough when everyone else is on automatic and asleep at the wheel of their life. Now, it starts to get even more interesting when you bring this into the more practical level of things in your everyday life. For example, like what about lying down to take a nap when someone else in the house is cleaning downstairs or in the other room? Do you let yourself rest because you need the rest, especially if you have the time? Or if you can't right then, do you carve out space to be able to do that later that day? Or are your body's needs not really at the forefront of things that you take seriously or dedicate time to in the day? What happens when you move the meeting because your body is saying that you need a rest day and you don't wait till you're in utter pain and horribly ill to make that call? Do you do it even if it's uncomfortable and risk being misunderstood in the name of giving this vessel of yours the rest it dearly needs as it's trying to keep up with this, patriarchal capitalist supremacist shit show we're watching collapse before our very eyes? You know what I mean? Like our bodies are going through a lot right now. And what about when the perimenopausal anxiety hits out of nowhere? And even though you realize that your hormones are roller coastering out of control and you're hanging on for dear life, do you berate yourself for having any kind of issues or needs? Are you hard on yourself? Or do you maybe, take a deep breath and tune into like where that anxiety is hovering and say something like, "Whew, body, I hear you, girl. I hear you. I really do. This feels awful. And I just want to remind you that we're safe right now. I know it doesn't feel like it, but we are actually. And whatever triggered this wave of hellish anxiety, I just want you to know that it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. We have a lot going on, and sometimes these waves happen. And I love you. I've got you for real. What do you think that you need today to feel a little bit more at ease?" Whew. Exhale. These bodies of ours are ours. They're ours. They're our vehicle for these souls that we're carrying around. You know your body better than anybody walking the planet. And we're here for the long game. We really are. As we're entertaining the idea of softening, let's talk about our body's built in armoring defense for a second. It is so essential to not only say right now, but also to understand that our body's armoring mechanisms are so needed right now, and it will be needed. Our body's armoring defense, more commonly known, of course, as our nervous system's sympathetic response in the forms of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. This is a highly, highly intelligent system that quite literally keeps us alive. We need it, we will need it, and we need it as we speak. It's the system that if, someone were to say something really off color or abusive or threatening, your body would cue you to doing exactly what you needed to do next. Boom, automatically. I'm speaking directly to this because that mechanism in our body is absolutely essential for even exploring the idea of softening. Because in order for softening to take place, in order for those guards to come down, exhales to happen, there has to be cues from your environment that your body feels is getting signals that it is safe to soften, right? So there is no purist, absolutist, dogmatic perfectionist requirement saying that you must be softened all the time. Like, don't even go there. Like that is not this conversation. That's not what it's for. And frankly, that would put you in harm's way, especially in the age that we're living in. It misses the point of the embedded invitation that is soften up. We've talked about soften up, its origins, what it means. We've talked some practical things on an everyday level of what soften up looks like. And now I want to talk about more at a societal level of where this conversation can also go in what comes next. We are watching the downfall of systems that never had our wellness, our health, or our humanity in mind whatsoever from the onset. When we're talking about what else we're going to create in its place, I'm so curious what exploring those ideas can look like if we are coming from a softened, vulnerable, honest, human place inside. Everything begins with intention. In order to build something that is fundamentally different than what we've all grown up inside of and also carry the effects of in our DNA, we must consider a fundamentally different come from place. Having clear intention at the outset of any new endeavor is essential because just like a pen can write something incredibly, oh, swoon worthy and poetic and gorgeous and moving, that same pen can be used as a vehicle for crushing hate that stays with a person for a lifetime and beyond. The pen is a tool, and the intention directs how it's used. Everything, everything is influenced by intention. And I do mean everything, like thing, tool, idea, creation, it all starts with intention. It may not be always conscious intention, it might be unconscious intention sometimes. I'm inviting us into a consciously chosen intention. If you're anything like me and walk through the world as a recovering people pleaser, perfectionist, good girl, it is so important to say that as we are naming intentions, choosing directions, cultivating ideas of what else is possible at a personal, communal, societal, and global level, we need to remember that no one of us will be creating this on our own. If you do feel any pressure as we're jumping into this leg of the conversation to even have it all figured out at the get go, or like, what would I write down? Or what are Krystal's ideas and how do mine compare? Like, just try to let all of that go, because it will be our future will be some version of a decentralized, flattened conversation, meaning that the old hierarchical approach to leadership and change is dying with the old systems that it created. What does this mean? It means that even though you're hearing me speak on a podcast right now, it does not make my voice or my ideas more valuable than your own or the next person's. It just simply means that I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I've got skin in the game. I'm leaving it all in the court, and any other weird sports analogies you can throw in there. And some ideas you'll take, some you'll leave, some will make you feel uncomfortable or challenge you. And a lot of them, I hope, you'll find much comfort and care and nourishment in. I'm going to be turning to you for a variety of things and insights and tools and skills and learnings and creations and vibey contributions too. We're all on our own timing with this. We all have different internal channels that we're plugging into. We have different soul missions. We have different gifts and skills and contributions to make. And at the end of the day, like we all get to contribute what we bring to the table. And we're in this together, as we're touching on these ideas, because that's essentially at a high level what this episode is about. We have a lot of unlearning and learning to do to go from a hyper individualist, siloed off, separatist, exhausted, burnt out everyday reality to a more communal and collectivist, decentralized, sustainable, connected, nourishing existence. It's going to take work. It's just going to take work and it's going to take time. And honestly, that's just those are just ideas that we know that are possible right now. We know ancestral and indigenous societies did things like this so well for centuries. And we do have a lot of power and leadership and trust to hand over to those communities that have, for such a long time, been highly affected and oppressed by the systems that be right now. I honestly believe that they have the most insight and perspectives to contribute on topics like this. I look forward to this space together to be a place where I can bring voices like that into our conversations. I love the idea of having conversations that center like this phrase that I use with my clients and in my conversations of like magical meets practical. Another take on that is like spiritual meets the everyday. I really love that space to dance in the middle of where it all comes together because I do believe at the end of the day we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And there's so much on the spirit realm, the energetic realm, the earth realm, like the wisdom of our earth that we just sever off and don't even include in our everyday lives. I think a lot of us, somebody like you listening, we have our own flavors of opening up to more of those unseen insights, perspectives, intuitions that I really believe can be so incredibly transformative for our experience here on earth. There's just so much more that we could be experiencing here on the opposite end of the spectrum of where we are right now when it comes to human expression. Like we are really seeing the darkest of what humanity is capable of. And I've said this in other conversations too, the equal and opposite exists at the very same time. And I want I quest to be an anchor for that light. And I know in my heart that if you're listening right now, you are one of those people doing the very same in your own ways. I really so much look forward to the conversations we're going to have here. I really welcome you to explore what soften up means for you. And so I will leave you with a few questions. What else is possible for our lives, our time here on Earth, for the Earth herself, for our communities, our families, and our global soul fam? Who will we become? What can we create in our time here? What can our time on Earth be like if we soften up? Until next time, love, thanks so much for being here. Talk soon.